The training facility hummed with the kind of sterile efficiency that made Thornik's secondary stomach churn. He stood at the observation deck, all four of his eyes fixed on the viewing screen below, watching the new batch of species representatives filter into the combat assessment chamber. 23 different civilizations, each one sending their finest warriors to learn the art of sanctioned combat within the Galactic Union's strict parameters. "Remind me again why we accept humans into this program," Vortax muttered, his mandibles clicking in irritation. His assistant, a young Peltharian named Quillix, adjusted her datapad with 3 of her 6 arms while the others fidgeted nervously. Because senior instructor, they passed the preliminary cognitive tests. Barely. Their representative scored exactly at the minimum threshold. Barely is generous. Vortax's tail swished behind him, nearly knocking over a containment unit. I reviewed her file. Kira Vance. Former military, discharged under circumstances that are, shall we say, diplomatically vague. No formal education past their planetary standards. And get this, she listed her hobbies as, quote, disappointing authority figures and collecting scars, end quote. Quillix's scales rippled with what Vortax had learned to recognize as suppressed amusement. That does sound very human. Doesn't it just? Vortax zoomed in on the human in question. She stood near the back of the group, shorter than most species present, though taller than the Macronians from Sector 7. Her skin was that odd peach-tan color that humans came in, marred by several visible scars that suggested either terrible luck or fantastic stupidity. Possibly both. Her hair, dark and pulled back in what his database informed him was called a ponytail, seemed like an impractical design for a species that claimed to be apex predators on their world. What caught his attention, however, was her expression. While every other species representative stood at attention, nervous or eager, or professionally stoic, Kira Vance looked bored. Not just bored, aggressively, offensively bored. She examined her fingernails like they were the most interesting thing in the entire facility. "Let's begin the orientation," Vortax announced, through the comm system, his voice booming into the chamber below. "Welcome, warriors of the Galactic Union, to the most prestigious combat training facility in this arm of the galaxy. I am Senior Instructor Vortax, and I will be overseeing your development over the next 6 cycles." He paused for effect. Most species snap to even more rigid attention. The human yawned. "Here, you will learn the approved methods of physical conflict resolution as outlined in the Union Combat Accords of 2847. You will learn discipline. You will learn technique. You will learn when to fight and, more importantly, when not to fight." Kira raised her hand. Vortax's eye stalks swiveled toward her. "Yes, Human Vance. Quick question. When you say combat accords, you mean rules, right? The combat accords are a comprehensive framework of engagement protocols designed to minimize lethality while maintaining combative effectiveness. So, rules? Got it." She nodded sagely. "Just checking, because where I come from, we have this saying, rules are really more like suggestions, you know?" A few species made sounds that Vortax's translator interpreted as nervous laughter. The Krellian representative's carapace actually paled 2 shades. "Human Vance, the combat accords are not suggestions. They are absolute requirements. Violation of these protocols can result in immediate expulsion, diplomatic sanctions against your homeworld, and in extreme cases, imprisonment." Vortax let that sink in. "Do I make myself clear?" "Crystal." She smiled in that peculiar way humans did, showing teeth. Vortax's extensive experience told him this was not a friendly expression despite what human social documentation claimed. "Excellent. Now the first and most critical rule of this facility." He activated the holographic display, and massive text appeared in 47 languages simultaneously. "No weapons are permitted in training exercises. None. Your combat assessments will be conducted using only your natural physical capabilities. No blades, no projectile weapons, no energy weapons, no chemical weapons, no biological weapons, no dimensional weapons, no temporal weapons." The list continued for approximately 3 minutes. When it finally ended, Vortax looked directly at Kira. "Human Vance, This rule applies especially to your species. We are aware that humans have a concerning tendency to weaponize literally anything within reach. This behavior will not be tolerated. No weapons, Kira repeated slowly. Got it. Good thing my hands qualify as weapons then. The chamber went very, very quiet. Quillix leaned toward Vortentix. Sir, I don't think that's what you meant. I know what I meant. Vortentix's primary eyes narrowed. Human Vance, your hands are not weapons. They are appendages, biological extremities designed for manipulation of objects and— Sure. Appendages. Totally. Kira flexed her fingers thoughtfully. Funny story though. Back on Earth my hands are actually registered with the local authorities because of my training. Legal requirement after a certain point. So technically, depending on your definition of weapon, they are not weapons here. If you say so, boss. That smile again. Wider this time. Vortex felt a headache forming in his tertiary brainstem. They were 5 minutes into orientation, and he already needed medication. This was going to be a very long training cycle. Moving on, he said through gritted mandibles. Your first assessment will be simple. A basic combat scenario against our automated defense drones. They are programmed to subdue, not harm. You will enter the arena one at a time, face 3 drones, and demonstrate your natural fighting capabilities. This will establish your baseline skill level. He gestured to the arena entrance. Velthan of Krelius, you're first. The Krelian warrior, all 8 feet of chitinous armor and multiple limbs, strode confidently into the arena. The doors sealed behind him. 3 drones, each roughly humanoid in shape and size, materialized from the walls. What followed was textbook Krelian combat technique. Defensive posturing, calculated strikes, efficient use of natural armor plating. Velthan subdued all 3 drones in approximately 4 minutes using approved grappling methods. Adequate, Vortex announced. Zilrath of the Void Colonies, you're next. One by one, each species representative took their turn. Most performed competently. A few surprised him with exceptional skill. The Threnody representative, Lysara, managed to disable her drones in under 2 minutes using nothing but her species' natural flexibility and what could only be described as aggressive acrobatics. Finally, inevitably, it was the human's turn. Human Vance, Vortex called. The arena awaits. Kira stretched, rolling her shoulders in a way that made several species flinch. Human joints, Vortex remembered from his xenobiology courses, were disturbingly flexible. She walked to the arena entrance, still looking like this was the least interesting part of her day. Remember, Vortex warned, no weapons. Natural capabilities only. Yep, got it. Just these. She waggled her fingers at him and stepped through the entrance. The doors sealed. 3 drones materialized. Kira stood in the center of the arena, hands in the pockets of her standard-issue training uniform, and waited. The drones didn't move. Instructor, Quillix whispered. Why aren't the drones engaging? Vortex checked his console. They're scanning her. Standard procedure. They analyze the opponent's physiology to calibrate their subdual parameters. The drones continued scanning. And scanning. This is taking longer than usual, Quillix noted. Yes, I can see that. Vortex input an override command. Initiate engagement. The drones moved as one, converging on Kira from 3 angles. What happened next would be analyzed in slow motion 17 times over the next hour, and Vortex still wouldn't fully believe it. Kira's hands left her pockets. That was the only warning. One moment she was standing casually, the next she was moving. Not fast by the standards of some species, the Xerillians could move at speeds that blurred visual tracking, but with an efficiency that was frankly disturbing. The first drone reached for her. She sidestepped, grabbed its extended arm, and used its own momentum to send it crashing into the second drone. The impact was considerable. Drones were built to withstand significant force. These 2 crumpled like cheap metal containers. The third drone adapted, coming in low with a sweep designed to destabilize her footing. Kira jumped. Not just jumped, she planted 1 foot on the drone's back as it passed beneath her, used it as a springboard, flipped in mid-air, and came down with both feet on the first drone as it tried to stand. The sound of stressed metal filled the arena. Then, and this was the part that Thornik would later describe as unnecessarily theatrical, she bent down, ripped a panel off the disabled drone, examined it critically, and threw it like a discus at the third drone. The makeshift projectile struck true, severing the drone's primary motivator. Total elapsed time 47 seconds. Kira dusted off her hands and looked up at the observation deck. That count, or should I go again? The observation chamber was silent except for the quiet whir of recording equipment, and Quillix's jaw hanging open with an audible creak. Quillix began. I have eyes, Quillix, all four of them. But sir, the drones are rated for... I know what they're rated for. Vortax's volume control slipped. He cleared his throat, trying to regain composure. Human Vance, return to the assembly area. Kira shrugged and walked back through the opening doors. Vortax pulled up her file again, scanning more carefully this time. There had to be something here. Some indication of genetic modification, cybernetic enhancement, anything that would explain what he'd just witnessed. Nothing. Standard human physiology. Actually, by human standards, she was apparently on the lower end of their military physical assessment scores. If she's below average for human military personnel, Quillix whispered, reading his screen over his shoulder, then what are their above-average soldiers like? Thornik decided he didn't want to know. This changes nothing, natural capabilities or not. There are rules, protocols, proper forms and techniques. I don't care if humans can apparently tear drones apart with their bare appendages. She will learn to do it correctly, or she will fail this program. He activated the comm again. All representatives, adequate work on the initial assessment. We will now move to partner exercises. You will be paired with another species for cooperative combat scenarios. He scrolled through the roster, looking for an appropriate pairing. Someone disciplined. Someone who followed rules. Someone who might counterbalance the humans' apparent chaos. His eyes landed on a name. You will be paired with Thornik of the Brosian Concordat. In the chamber below, a massive figure stepped forward. Thornik stood nearly 10 feet tall, his rocky exterior earning his species the nickname Stone People among younger races. The Brosians were known throughout the Union for their rigid adherence to protocol, their methodical approach to everything, and their complete lack of anything resembling a sense of humor. Perfect. Thornik looked down at Kira, who looked up at Thornik. The size difference was comical. Human, Thornik rumbled, his voice like grinding gravel. I have reviewed Earth's admission to the Galactic Union. Your species is young, reckless, and lacking in proper respect for established order. I expect you to follow my lead precisely during our training. Deviation will not be tolerated. Kira tilted her head, studying him. You know what I love about expectations. They're so fun to subvert. Thornik's face, already stone, somehow managed to look more stone-like. This partnership will be difficult. Oh, Thornik, buddy, you have no idea. Kira patted his arm, or tried to. She couldn't quite reach. This is going to be fun. Vortax watched this interaction and felt his headache intensify. 6 training cycles. He had to supervise this human for 6 entire training cycles. Suddenly his retirement plans seemed far more appealing than they had this morning. All pairs, proceed to your designated training sectors, he announced. We begin advanced exercises at the start of next shift. Dismissed. As the representatives filed out, Vortax replayed the footage of Kira's assessment one more time. The way she moved, the casual efficiency, the complete disregard for the drone's structural integrity. It all pointed to one conclusion. Humans were going to be a problem. Not just here, in his nice orderly training facility, but everywhere. The Union had accepted them thinking they were getting another standard bipedal species with average capabilities and delusions of importance. What they'd actually gotten was something else entirely. Quillix, Vortax said quietly, pull up the full report on human evolutionary history. I want to know everything about how they developed on their world. Sir? Just do it. If human Vance is their baseline, I need to understand exactly what kind of species we've invited into the Union. Quillix's fingers flew across her datapad. A moment later her scales went pale. Sir, you should see this. Humans evolved as persistence predators. They literally chased prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Their planet has more active geological and weather disasters than 97% of habitable worlds. They domesticated apex predators as companions. They engage in recreational activities that simulate near-death experiences for enjoyment. Stop. Just stop. Thornik held up a manipulator. Let me guess. They're also one of the few species where intraspecies combat is a professional sport. Multiple professional sports, sir. Apparently they have hundreds of different formalized systems for hitting each other. Thornik looked at the now empty arena, at the disabled drones being collected by maintenance workers, and wondered not for the first time if his job paid enough for this level of stress. Somewhere in the residential sector, Kira Vance was probably already breaking some rule he didn't even know existed yet. This was going to be a very, very long 6 cycles. The morning shift alarm in the training facility sounded like a dying Quelthian wail, which Thornik suspected was intentional. Nothing motivated trainees quite like auditory assault at dawn. He arrived at his observation post early, clutching a stimulant beverage that his medical officer had assured him was safe for Peltherian physiology, despite tasting like recycled thermal fluid. Quillix was already there, which was either dedication or concern. Probably concern. Status report, Thornik demanded, settling into his command chair. All pairs reported to their sectors on time. Well, almost all. Human Vance arrived 17 minutes late with what she claimed was, quote, a really good excuse involving the cafeteria, zero-gravity plumbing, and a fundamental misunderstanding of Graxian digestive requirements, end quote. Thornik's primary eyes closed slowly. Do I want details? The cafeteria is currently closed for decontamination. The Graxian in question has filed a formal apology. Apparently the human was trying to help. Of course she was. He pulled up the training schedule. Today's exercise is synchronized defensive formations. Each pair must maintain cohesion while defending against multiple assault drones. Emphasis on teamwork, communication, and adherence to proper defensive protocols. Sir, about human Vance and Thornik. Quillix hesitated. What about them? Well, they've been in their assigned training sector for approximately 3 hours already. They requested early access. Thornik's eye stalks snapped up. They what? Show me their sector. Now. The screen flickered to life, showing training sector 7. What Thornik saw made his secondary stomach do an uncomfortable flip. Thornik stood in the center of the room, his massive stone-like form perfectly still in a textbook defensive stance. Around him, Kira moved like water, not the peaceful kind, the kind that eroded mountains given enough time. She was talking, constantly talking, while circling him. No, Thornik, you're thinking about this all wrong. Her voice came through the speakers. You're strong, right? Built like a fortress. That's great. Fantastic, love that for you, but you're also slow. No offense. None taken. Thornik rumbled. Brosian physiology prioritizes durability over speed. This is known, right? So stop trying to compete on speed. You're the anchor. The wall. The thing that doesn't move. Kira stopped in front of him. But here's the fun part. You know what happens when something immovable meets something that doesn't want to stop? Impact trauma? Exactly. For them, not you, she grinned. Watch, throw a strike at me. Slow, controlled by the book. Thornik extended his massive arm in a standard striking motion. Kira didn't dodge. Instead, she stepped into it, redirected it past her with minimal effort, and used his extended position to demonstrate how an opponent would be off balance. See? You create opportunities just by existing. You don't need to be fast, you need to be inevitable. Thornik watched, fascinated despite himself, as the human proceeded to completely deconstruct formal Brosian combat doctrine and rebuild it into something that was technically still following the rules but felt entirely wrong. Is she? Quillix squinted at the screen. Is she actually training him? Apparently. Vornax checked Thornik's file. He's been attending Union combat facilities for 4 cycles. Has every certification, perfect marks on written examinations. But his practical assessments have been, quote, adequate but unremarkable, end quote. On screen, Thornik attempted the modification Kira suggested. It was clumsy, unpracticed, but the fundamental principle was sound. Better. See, you're not trying to be something you're not. You're being the best version of what you are, which in your case is a literal rock that punches people. Kira nodded approvingly. Now when we're in formation, I'm going to be annoying. You are already annoying, Thornik stated flatly. Fair point. I'm going to be tactically annoying. I'll draw attention, create chaos, make opponents think they have openings they don't have. Your job is to be there when they commit. Don't chase, don't overextend, just be present and inevitable. This contradicts standard paired formation doctrine. Standard doctrine assumes both partners have similar capabilities. We don't. So we adapt, or we lose. Your choice, partner. Thornik was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, his rocky features shifted into what might have been a smile. I believe I am beginning to understand why your species concerns Senior Instructor Vortentax. Oh, Thornik. If this concerns him, wait until he sees what we do during the actual exercise. Vortax felt a chill run down his spine. Quillix, increase monitoring on Sector 7. I want full recording, every angle. You think they're planning something? I think the human is always planning something. The question is whether it violates enough regulations to justify intervention. The rest of the morning passed in relative calm. Other pairs practiced their formations with varying degrees of success. The Krellian and Thrinity pair moved with fluid precision. The Azarillian twins they'd sent 2 from their Hivemind collective operated with unsettling synchronization. Even the notoriously independent Quelthian had managed to coordinate with their Micronean partner, though the size difference made for awkward positioning. Then came time for the actual assessment. All pairs, report to Central Arena, Vortenxi announced. You will face waves of assault drones in increasing difficulty. Maintain your defensive formations, protect your partner, survive for 10 minutes. Begin when ready. The first few pairs performed adequately. Some struggled, a few excelled. The Krellian Threnody pair made it through all waves with minimal damage, their complementary fighting styles creating a nearly impenetrable defense. Human Vance and Thornik of Brosia, you're next. They entered the arena together. Thornik took position at the center, exactly as doctrine specified. Kira, however, didn't take the standard flanking position. Instead, she stood slightly ahead of him, loose and relaxed. Human Vance, correct your positioning, Vortex called down. Nah, I'm good here, thanks though. That was not a suggestion. And yet here I stand, suggesting otherwise with my body language. Thornik's voice rumbled through the arena. Senior Instructor, I have agreed to this formation variation. I take full responsibility. Vortax's mandibles clicked in frustration. Fine, begin assessment. The first wave materialized. 5 drones, standard combat models, advanced slowly from multiple angles. What happened next would later be described in training manuals as, quote, an unauthorized tactical interpretation of defensive doctrine that nevertheless achieved mission parameters with unusual efficiency, end quote, which was military speak for, it shouldn't have worked but somehow did. Kira didn't wait for the drones to reach them. She moved forward, fast and aggressive, directly at the nearest drone. It adjusted its approach to engage her. At the last second she dropped, slid under its reaching arms, and popped up behind it, now between the drone and Thornik. The drone, programmed to pursue its target, followed. Straight into Thornik's waiting fist. The impact sounded like a small, controlled explosion. The drone went flying backward, disabled. 1 down, Kira called cheerfully. Hey Thornik, you know what's fun? Physics. I am familiar with physics, human. Great, let's do more physics at the drones. She was already moving, this time engaging 2 drones simultaneously. Her movements were controlled chaos, drawing them in, making them commit to attacks that left them exposed. And behind her, inevitable as gravity, Thornik followed, not chasing, not rushing, just advancing at his steady pace. Every time a drone overcommitted, there he was. Every time Kira created an opening, he filled it. They weren't moving like a traditional defensive pair. They were moving like a trap with two parts, bait and hammer. The first wave fell in 90 seconds. Wave 2, Vortex announced, increasing difficulty. 10 drones this time, faster model. Kira's grin widened. Ooh, they brought friends. Thornik, wanna try that thing we practiced? The inadvisable thing. That's the one. Before Vortex could demand clarification, Kira ran straight at Thornik. He braced himself, stone form locked solid. She jumped, planted one foot on his extended knee, the other on his shoulder, and launched herself into the air toward a cluster of drones. The drones scattered, their programming recognizing the aerial threat, which meant they weren't watching Thornik, who had started moving the moment Kira left his shoulders. She came down in the middle of 4 drones, rolled and immediately went low, sweeping legs. The drones stumbled. Thornik arrived like an avalanche, and suddenly there were 4 fewer operational drones. This is not defensive formation protocol, Vortex shouted into the comm. It's defensive, Kira shouted back, narrowly avoiding a drone strike. We're defending. Against these guys, who are attacking us. That's literally the definition. You're supposed to maintain position. We are maintaining position. Our position just happens to be wherever we're most effective. The remaining 6 drones adapted, trying to separate the pair. 3 went for Kira, 3 for Thornik. Oh no, Kira, said, her tone suggesting she was not at all concerned. They're learning. That's adorable. Thornik, figure 8? Confirmed. They moved in perfect synchronization, not by staying close but by understanding exactly where the other would be. Kira wove between the drones pursuing her, leading them in a pattern that brought her circling back toward Thornik. He meanwhile advanced through his pursuers like they weren't there, his stone form absorbing their strikes without slowing. When the paths crossed, chaos erupted. Drones collided with each other trying to track their targets. Thornik's massive arms swept through the confused cluster. Kira used a disabled drone as a springboard to take out another from above. 10 seconds later, Wave 2 was finished. The arena fell silent except for the hum of disabled drones powering down. Well, Kira said, breathing only slightly harder. That was fun. What's Wave 3? Vortex looked at his console, then at Quillix, then back at the console. Wave 3 is 20 drones. Advanced combat models. It's designed to be nearly impossible. Nearly, you say? Kira cracked her knuckles. Thornik, you thinking what I'm thinking? If you are thinking that this human tendency toward excessive confidence will result in injury, then yes. I was thinking we should show off a little, but your thing works too. Send them in. Vortex hesitated. This was already far beyond normal assessment parameters. The human and her partner had completely disregarded standard doctrine and somehow succeeded. Every instinct told him to stop the assessment, lecture them on proper procedure, and assign remedial training. But another part of him, the part that had been a warrior before becoming an instructor, wanted to see what they'd do next. Wave 3, deploy. 20 drones materialized. These were different, sleeker, faster, equipped with advanced predictive algorithms that learned from observed combat patterns. Kira whistled. Okay, these guys look serious. Thornik? Yes, human. Remember when I said you should be inevitable? I do. How about we add unstoppable to that list? An acceptable modification. The drones attacked as a coordinated unit, their programming allowing them to function as a single organism. It was designed to overwhelm any defensive formation through sheer numbers and tactical sophistication. They had not been programmed for whatever Kira and Thornik were doing, because what they were doing wasn't a defensive formation anymore. It was barely organized at all. It was improvisation elevated to an art form, 2 completely different combat philosophies that somehow harmonized into something greater than the sum of their parts. Kira moved like lightning, unpredictable, and striking from unexpected angles. Thornik moved like continental drift, slow but absolutely certain. Together they created a dynamic that the drone's algorithms couldn't process. The battle lasted 4 minutes. By the end, Kira was showing signs of fatigue, breathing hard, a few bruises forming where drone strikes had landed. Thornik had several scratches in his stone-like hide, but otherwise appeared unbothered. All 20 drones lay disabled around them. The observation deck was completely silent. So Kira called up, hands on her knees, catching her breath. Do we pass or do we need to fight more robots? Because I could go either way honestly, but maybe after a snack. Vortex found his voice, though it came out rougher than intended. Return to the assembly area. Both of you. As they left the arena, Quillix leaned over. Sir, technically, they completed the objective, defended for the full time, defeated all threats, protected each other. It's unconventional, but nothing. They ignored every standard formation principle, every tactical doctrine. Thornik struggled for words. They succeeded, Quillix finished quietly. Against an assessment designed to push pairs to their absolute limit, they succeeded. Unconventionally, yes. But successfully. Vortex watched the replay footage. She was right, of course. By every measurable metric, they'd exceeded expectations. But expectations existed for a reason. Doctrine existed for a reason. If he allowed this kind of improvisation, what message did it send? Schedule a review session with them, he finally said. I need to understand their tactical reasoning. And Quillix, yes sir. Pull combat footage from Earth's historical databases, military engagements, sporting events, whatever you can find. If this is how one human operates, I need to understand if this is standard for their species or if human Vance is an outlier. Already done, sir. I've been reviewing footage since yesterday. And? Quillix's scales did that pale thing again. Sir, the concerning part isn't that human Vance is exceptional by their standards. The concerning part is that she's average. Solidly middle of the pack for human military personnel. There are millions more like her, and the truly exceptional ones. She trailed off, pulling up a file. They're special forces operators. They're elite warriors. The footage is, well, see for yourself. She played a clip from what the database labeled as a training exercise. Human soldiers moving through hostile territory, adapting to threats in real time, using tactics that seem to change moment by moment based on immediate conditions. It looked exactly like what he'd just watched in the arena. They don't follow doctrine, Vortex said slowly, understanding dawning. Not because they don't know it or don't respect it. They don't follow it because they've evolved past it. Every human is trained to adapt, improvise, operate independently within a larger structure. It's in their nature, Quillix agreed. They're creative problem solvers in high-stress situations. It makes them unpredictable, which, from a combat perspective, is terrifying. Vortex finished, for opponents and allies alike. His comm chirped. Thornik's designation appeared, Senior Instructor. Human Vance wishes to apologize for any concern our performance may have caused. She asked me to relay that, quote, we were totally following the spirit of the rules if not the exact letter, and isn't the spirit what really matters? Also, she's sorry about your blood pressure, whatever that is. End quote. Vortex's headache returned with renewed vigor. Tell Human Vance that her apology is noted and that I expect both of you at my office in 1 hour for tactical review. Understood, she says, and I quote, sweet, does that mean we passed? Despite everything, despite the doctrine violations and the stress and the complete disregard for proper procedure, Vortex found himself making a sound that might have been a laugh if his species did that sort of thing. Tell her, provisionally yes, but the cycle is far from over. After the comm closed, Vortex sat back in his chair, looking at the arena below. Other pairs were starting their assessments now, following doctrine, doing everything by the book. They'd probably do fine, meet expectations, graduate with adequate marks. But the human and her partner had done something else entirely. They'd exceeded every parameter while simultaneously violating every protocol. They'd proven that sometimes, maybe, the book was wrong, or at least incomplete. Quillix, update the training curriculum. Add a new module. Call it adaptive tactics or something appropriately vague. If we're going to have more humans in the program, and I suspect we will, we need to account for their particular approach to combat. Learn from Human Vance's example. Learn from the fact that the galaxy just got a lot more interesting, and pretending otherwise would be foolish. He pulled up Kira's file one more time, looking at that smirking photo, and maybe, just maybe, the rest of us could benefit from a little controlled chaos in our lives. You're going to pass her, aren't you? Despite everything? I'm going to do more than that. I'm going to make sure she finishes this program, because the galaxy needs to see what humans are capable of. Not to fear them necessarily, but to understand them. He paused, and because I'm petty enough to want to see the look on Command's faces when they see the final assessment reports. Quillix's scales rippled in amusement. Sir, you're developing a sense of humor. Prolonged exposure to humans may be affecting your psychology. That's concerning on multiple levels. Make a note to have medical scan me next week. Already scheduled, sir. For all personnel who have direct contact with Human Vance. Efficient as always, Quillix. Down in the arena, another pair was struggling through Wave 2. Standard tactics, proper formation, everything by the book. They'd probably make it through, but Vortex found himself thinking about the chaos he'd witnessed earlier, the improvisation, the absolute confidence that rules were just suggestions waiting to be creatively interpreted. Humans were going to change everything, whether the galaxy was ready or not. And in his office, probably already raiding his emergency ration supplies, Kira Vance was undoubtedly planning her next creative interpretation of established protocols. Vortex decided his retirement fund needed to be substantially larger. This was definitely going to be a very long 6 cycles. But perhaps unexpectedly, also interesting ones.